but we can start. But so I send a video. I don't know if anyone watched it. I send it to the center's link, and just in case you're interested. But I don't even care about the particular topic of the video. Isn't that important to me? I don't know if you guys looked yet. It's Kathleen Stock. She's one of my favorite intellectuals on the planet. I think I've gained more from her than almost any intellectual I've listened to. But she's a philosopher, and this topic is on assisted suicide, and I thought particularly you might be interested in it. State run suicide, and so she's a philosopher, and she had some views on trans issues that got her vilified, and she ended up stepping down from university because of death threats and violent threats towards her for what I think are extremely moderate views. But she, the rabid people just chased her out. And so then she just started speaking about various things, and she's doing her career outside of university now. And this just happens to be, I just happened to click on it because I like her. And it's all on assisted suicide. But I'm going through these pages. There's like 7 pages on reviews. I don't care about them. I don't even know how I feel about assisted suicide, except that I just love listening to her think, because she parses out all of the different problems and strengths of various arguments in ways that are, I suppose I could do it, but I wouldn't. I mean, I'm, more of a heart guy. I can do that. I can think like that, but I would have to force myself to, and I'd have to keep myself disciplined to think like that for a long time. And she just naturally does. So I find it to be just endlessly beneficial to listen to her think. So I send it to you guys. You might want to check it out. But it ties into what I want to say tonight. But I want to say is almost not even on that topic. So let me start with this. Let me read this. It's poetry, but it's really song lyrics. But let me read this to you. I hope it's relevant, because don't you think it's pretty loud out there? And it just gets louder every day. And it reminds me of spectacle. If I don't take psychedelics, but don't do it. But if you ever did, if you ever took a lot, like a whole bunch, which I did, you realize that when it first begins to set upon you, you come under the influence of something. And in the end, it's these beings that sit and do these circus dances for you. And I think when you come to the end of what it all is, it's a farce and it's a spectacle. I think it's all about spectacle. And I think what's happening now in the world, some percentage of it is just the spectacle of the clowns, the spectacle of the idiot, the spectacle of the fool. And it's so loud. And what I want to say is I don't want to dance with them. I don't want to dance to their tune. Jesus says, we played a dirge for you and you would not dance. Right? And I'd rather dance with him, is what I'm saying. I don't want to dance to the tune of the farce. And almost no one, I think, in here does. I don't think very many people are caught up in the politics of the day. I think most people here are informed. But as far as being caught up in the politics of the day, just remember, if you're angry about it every day, they are your teacher. And you're learning their lesson well. If they've got you angry, you are their student. And this really is the most direct thing I can say about what this farce and the circus show and the clown show is about. It's just, can they get you there with them? Can they bring you down to their level? Can they make you hate? Can they make you be angry? Can they make you afraid? If they can do that, then you have become their student and you are their disciple. And I can ignore a circus, but when the circus is my country, it's harder to ignore. If it's a movie, I don't have to watch it. I don't. If it's trash, well, depends on who you ask. I have bad taste in film. I'm such a music snob, and then I have bad taste in film. So keep that in mind if I've ever rubbed you wrong with music. You wouldn't watch the stuff I watch. You have much more refined taste than that. But yeah, so if it's a movie, I can ignore it. I don't have to watch it. I must, as a citizen of my country, be informed on what's happening. That's important. But I have to be informed in such a way that I remain at peace and in love. I have to remain in love. Here's the lyrics. There were days, and there were days, and there were days between. Summer flies, and August dies, and the world grows dark and mean. Comes the shimmer of the moon on black infested trees. The singing man is at his song, the holy on their knees. The reckless are out wrecking. The timid plead their pleas. And no one knows much more than this, than anyone has seen. And that was really meant to be the first of the class. That's all I really wanted, was just to read that. Those are just lyrics to a song I've sent you guys to listen to before. But I like it because that song, if I listen, there's a whole other two sections of it, but something about it reminds me of a kind of enlightenment. And I bet some of you taste this at times, where you're able to hold the great and terrible evil in the world at the same time that you're able to hold the most sublime and beautiful. And that you don't have to be in only one or the other. It's a kind of fragmented consciousness that must avoid the evil in the world, or can only focus on the evil in the world, or that avoids the good and the true, or can only focus on the good and the true. And there's a kind of consciousness that a Christian must be able to hold, that holds it all at the same time. And the reason that I like these lyrics is because I feel like it comes from that state of consciousness. It alludes to it. It's the most sublime and beautiful and sweet, right along with the horrors of the world. And I think too, a Christian, I think that a Christian ends up holding that view of the world because they end up holding it of themselves. I think that's why. Because they can see the ugliness in themselves and the true and good all at the same time. And I think that's some kind of complex stability. I think it's incredibly difficult to talk about and teach. That's what I think. I struggle greatly with how to say it in a way that works. This is the part where I'm glad it's not a class, so I could just speak freely. But the challenge is this: how do you get someone to feel good about themselves without getting them to lose humility? How do you keep them truly humble without them losing access to the joy? And how do you do it? And it's I think that it is, that I would call it, for me at least, the challenge of my lifetime to find out how to do that and not oscillate some way or another between them. I was thinking about when I got initiated into the New Age movement and how it because we only got told the good, no one was in any resistance. Here, you might hear someone say, "Yeah, I feel myself. I want it, but I don't want it. I want to give myself to it, but I don't want to get." Well, we wanted to because we were going to be superheroes. And there's a problem there, but there's a great good there too. There's also a great good there. And the great good is you don't feel that resistance to wanting to give yourself to it. But, you're only giving yourself to half of it. So it's so tricky. And I was thinking in Christianity, the evangelicals are kind of the New Agers of the Christian world. And, Catholicism kind of says we're saved already, but we're being saved now, and we will be saved in the future. In that little phrase is somewhere in there is the answer to my dilemma, how to pass it on, and where you're getting both, where what I say is reflective of all of that at the same time, all three of those things. And in sort of the evangelical world, my experiences, I was thinking of someone, I think some of the evangelicals I've met are the most incredible, beautiful people. So I have to first say that, of course. But often I'm thinking of some people my cousin was married to a person whose brother was a huge person in the evangelical world. And he came to all of our family parties for a few years. And, he was the most edgy person in the room if he was in the room. There's no one more edgy than him. And also no one more sure of their salvation and more confident about it. No one. And it was this juxtaposition of complete faith in being saved, complete confidence in their Christianity, to the point of correcting people that are more advanced than them. Not me, by the way, not secretly saying me. My aunt and uncle who exude love, right? The least edgy people in the room. Just radiant. Sometimes I've told you my Aunt Bonnie, I think sometimes really does glow. You get her on the right night and she's just being delightful like Anne. She's saying nothing directly spiritual, I don't think. Sometimes she might be, but she's certainly not preaching. She could be telling you about her childhood or my grandma or growing up on the ranch, or, she could just be telling you whatever that she's telling you, but it's so delightful and so sweet and so innocent and laden with no agenda of any kind. And there's just this love pouring out and just, wonderful love. Just wonderful, delightful love. And a little like Clyde in that sense, where Clyde would sometimes tell you a story that was irrelevant to your position in life. But then when you left, you felt better anyway. And we would puzzle like, what he said had nothing to do with what I asked him about. Nothing. But when you left, you'd just be all great again because the power would come through him. And I think my Aunt Bonnie was like that, but that's the juxtaposition, There's this person in the room that's sure they're saved. They're so sure they're saved, they're worried about your salvation as a Christian. And they're so sure of their authority within the Christian world that they're questioning your Christianity and critiquing it and doubting it. And that isn't that person's fault necessarily. It comes a lot from always being told and celebrating what you already have. But there's a phrase, Catholic guilt, for a reason too, which is maybe erring, being taught on the side of always your sin, always your sin, always what's missing, and having both of those at the same time. But trying to pass both on to people that don't have both at the same time, with varying personalities and how they receive it differently, depending on baggage and stuff. I just think it's the hardest thing on earth to do. Frankly, I just think it's difficult. This is my point. It's difficult. But I want to do it. And I want to do it better. it seems easy to pass on one or another. It seems easy to pass on one or another. It seems difficult to pass on both at once. It seems difficult, especially when one of them is dreadful to the person who's not yet surrendered to it. I think it's not dreadful, by the way. You know, the night ends when you surrender. I think you just become best friends with the night when you surrender and love it. Because it's never ended for me, except that I no longer dread it. I love it. I want it. When the fire comes, you're breaking out in sweats across your skin because you're being purified. I really like it. And I don't want it to go away. And I also don't ever want gravity to leave my life. I don't want deep gravity to leave. I don't want flippant joy. I don't want it. I want gravity. I want that. But I also never want to lose laughter, joy, a sense of great freedom in the world, celebration of life. I don't want to lose that either. And Jesus had and is all of that and more. And we're called to all of that and more. We're good at some naturally and bad at others. I think we tend to cling to the ones we're good at and say, that's Jesus. That's Christianity. You can see it in the ridiculous divisions in our country where each side has about 35% of what Jesus teaches, and they make that the whole picture. And then it's not the whole picture. It's all of it. And then some of it no one has at all, because Christ has a lot. Just a lot to give. And so I want to do better that way. It's tricky. And these song lyrics, I think, this guy, Robert Hunter, these are written by Jerry and Robert, but he had a gift for somehow you're being taught about God, but it seems like the lyrics are only talking about the world. Little like my aunt. There's a bomb of wisdom dropped every now and then in these lyrics. These are a little deeper, but somehow it's like finding God in the world, I guess. Finding God everywhere. Everywhere. In everything. But here we are, man. We're in the world and the reckless are out there wrecking. They're out there wrecking. And the level of the clowns and the fools and the idiots are celebrating the recklessness with great hubris and pride. And it's frightening because I understand what happens to me every single time I enter pride. I have to fall. And when so many of the people who set the tone for the country are in the most reckless, childish kind of hubris I've ever seen. And when so many villains and bugs have come out from under their rocks and logs and feel emboldened by it and are running up and speaking everywhere the same vile hubris, when that infects a country, I wonder what has to happen to the country to find its humility again. I worry because I know what happens to me, and I know what happens to everyone who I see go into pride. But, and so why did I bring up Kathleen Stock if this was the point, right? Why? Well, because while the most vile, childish hubris and the level of thinking is, I'm not a thinker. I'm not even a thinker. I mean, I can do it, like I said, but I won't. I will when I have to. I sit and do it, but I'm not what you'd call a thinker. I'm a heart guy. That's me, heart guy. When our leaders can't think at a level I could think at before I was taught the value of reason, while that's happening, right? And it's being celebrated by many fools and idiots who have not done their work or who have Stockholm syndrome, having been raised by people just like them. That would have been me because I was raised by the same. It's exactly like home. When it first came 12 years ago, I wept. I wept for many reasons. One reason I wept is I said, out of the frying pan into the fire, I'm finally free of my upbringing. I'm finally not angry or hurt by them. I finally only feel love towards them, but also that I'm finally free, that I built a life for myself away from narcissism. And I said, and this has swept the country. It has swept the country. And now out of the frying pan into the fire. Then, and also my core resentment, which I had overcome and I still have. But my core one was men specifically in positions of power who use their intellect to lie and manipulate people. This was my core hatred and resentment and chip on my shoulder. If you wanted to know the root of my anger, that was the root of my anger. I got over that and I forgave completely, only to watch it sweep the nation utterly. And everyone on any side is going, yes, that other side. But just remember, I see it everywhere. I see it everywhere. I'm not talking about sides. Not really. If and I don't even want to ever do politics, really. I don't ever want to do it. I'm not really talking about sides, but I do have a pastoral care for people. Watch out, because it's poison. And if your side is right, and you're reveling in the other side getting it, getting told, you're eating that poison. Don't eat it. Don't ingest it. If this country has a hope, it's you guys. Loving and forgiving and being clear. If there's a hope, it's in our spiritual growth. If there's a hope, it's in people free enough to think clearly because they're not aligned some weird way. If there's hope, it's in people who love God more than tribe. If there's hope, it's in that. And dysfunctional families protect the dysfunction, don't want to admit it. To the degree you're aligned to your tribe, you will protect it and you won't admit it. You won't even see it. Someone outside of your tribe does something, you'll see it. Someone inside your tribe does it, don't even notice. Don't even notice. That's idolatry. That's idolatry. If there's a hope for us, it's in a love of truth and not a love of tribe. And we have to be a part of the solution and not a part of the problem. And, it all counts. What I'm feeling in private is felt in public. What I'm doing in private. You don't know if you don't live with sensitive people, but so my wife's a bulwark, She could drink a pot of coffee and go to bed. No problem. I drink a cup in the morning and I might not be okay that night. Cassie's a sensitive like me. I'm like her. She said, the worst thing living with you, Dad, is I can feel something, keep it to myself, and you know anyway. And vice versa. You just can't hide anything. And, that's mystics and non-mystics, right? And we both are influenced by God, and we're both changed by God, but one side notices it consciously more. But both sides are changed. Well, don't think anything you harbor is a secret. Don't think it isn't affecting the public consciousness, including the fear and hiding from it, because that's no better. You're depressed because of it, you feed the problem. You're terrified of it, you feed the problem. You hate with them, you feed the problem. You have to see and love. It's inventory. To see and love. No one has to be perfect because, it's a steep. So the reason I juxtaposed all of that mess is because that's not all that's going on. There's wonderful, great, incredible things also happening. There's the reckless out wrecking, and then there's the holy on their knees. The two extreme ends are happening right now. Right now, there are saints praying, coming to the highest heights of holiness and love in this country, while there are villains out villaining and entering hell. And it's both happening. One's making a big loud show of it, but that's why you have to tune some of that out. Or they become your teacher. The holy are on their knees in silence. They're not parading it about. And what's more important? For your attention and consciousness. And so for fun, just because I like to be weird, I took this almost random good that I had almost no interest in, and I don't know if I still do. I don't know if I care about this issue that much, but here's what I thought. I listened to her for an hour give a speech on why she's against assisted suicide. And she gave all these reasons. I'll give a few, but I don't care about the argument. I don't know if I care. Maybe I do. Today, as of this moment, I was just exposed to it yesterday. I don't know if I care or not. I don't know if I agree or not. I haven't heard the counter arguments yet. I guess I'll spend another hour on some counter arguments. But what I thought and what I was struck by in the end, really, was just how beautiful it is that people are thinking deeply about how best to end the suffering of just people at the end of their life. And how much thought and care and gravity and seriousness and consideration, the hours of thinking it through, every possible outcome of the actions we might take. How best just to lessen human suffering. And if you listen to her, I hope you do, because I think she's one of my measures of a scholar that is great is if you disagree, you still feel deeply fed when you're done. There's just no villainy going on. And there's just no villainy with her. You can just disagree and she will have made you smarter and better at disagreeing when you're done. It's not about some scholars, there's a whole bunch of edge. I try to not spend too much time with them. She has no edge. A little bit like John Lennox, the Christian apologist, who is delightful. He's got Anne's delightfulness. He's just delightful, and if you leave and you're not Christian, you still go, man, That was nice spending an hour with him. That was delightful. She made some good points that I want to mention that I thought were interesting. She said most of her problems with assisted suicide, she said not all, she said she's against it in every respect, in all respects. But she said, as a philosopher and as a public speaker, her problems come when it becomes institutionalized, when it's administered by the state. And she gave a bunch of examples. Her arguments are better than I can reproduce for you. I did reproduce them, but I'm not going to do 8 pages for you or 9. I kept turning them like, that's got to be it, right? No more. Too much. There's no way. But listen, though, they're very nuanced. If you disagree, you will be disagreeing with things that you really do disagree with, but that you would have never thought of on your own. That's what's great about her. That's why I love her so much. Her intellect is so keen. But she made some really good points, and one of them was that there's a taboo around suicide. Christianity has always had a firm, you absolutely don't kill other people or kill yourself. So you don't help people kill themselves because that's killing other people. It's thou shalt not kill. It's a commandment. And it's rooted in some things deeper than I want to talk about right now, but one of the things it's rooted in is suicide is catchy. It's very catchy. There's a social contagion to it. It's a fact. It's a well-known fact. And the taboo around it, if it is to be removed, would necessarily lead eventually to calling it a good. And once people think something is a good, campaigns to encourage it emerge. You might think that's too crazy, but she gave many countries where it's already happening. This is a now issue. It's not an in the future issue. It's already happening. She's in the UK. They're getting ready to vote in assisted suicide, and she's a proponent against it. I didn't know that was even happening in the UK, but that's what's going on there. Let me ask you this. When's the last time you felt like you got good care from your doctor where they sat down and spent all the time you needed with them to understand you? My answer to that is never. Has that ever happened in my life? Not once. So she says, think of that. You already can't stand your medical insurance. You can't stand what you're receiving. I know Anne has massive complaints about the medical community. She does hospice care, something Kathleen praises endlessly as the real answer. So you don't get care. You don't get cared for. They're in a hurry. They make more money if they see more people. The hospital makes more money if they see more people. You don't get care. And she said, but we're supposed to trust them with the decision on whether or not the person asking for suicide actually wants it and needs it. Isn't coerced by family members to say so. Isn't in dire need of psychological care that if they had would free them from wanting suicide. And we're going to trust an overtaxed, underfunded system to make those choices. I thought those are valid. I'm not saying it means she's right. Again, I don't care. I hadn't thought all that through, personally. There are countries where the day you ask for it, they will administer it to you. This is now. Now. There are countries where they don't care if you're gravely ill. You can just ask for it and they will give it to you. And the other issue I thought was worth bringing up tonight, just because, is you've got a state, right, who also provides palliative care. At least not in America, but in the UK, they actually give you hospice care. You know what hospice is? You're going to die, you're 6 months out or so, anywhere from 0 to 6 months out. And they care for you. People come and see you, or they keep you in a facility and they give you pain medication to manage your pain and suffering. They do what is needed to ease human suffering while you finish out the last days of your life in dignity. She said, "How do you feel?" This is me paraphrasing. She's better at everything. Everything. She's better at everything than me. "How do you feel, though?" She says, "How do you feel about the state cutting funding for hospice care while recommending assisted suicide instead? How do you feel about that?" There's a massive financial motivation. Just get rid of the problem. Don't treat it. And then she said something beautiful, and I chose not to go into Catholicism's arguments against it, but what I love about Kathleen Stock is I'm certain she's an atheist. I know she's a lesbian. She's probably not a huge fan of Christianity. I've never heard her speak out against it, but she doesn't seem to really be angry at anything. But what's interesting is her reasoning often falls right in line with Christian thinking. And one of the things she said is that if a person is 3 days out from being dead, they're not dead yet. And if they're not dead, then their life has profound dignity and value because it's life. And she said, you can't have spreadsheets involved, and they are involved, in who you care for and who you encourage to die. And when the people doing the encouraging or caring are influenced by board members and funding, there's obviously profound corruption that happens. And again, I don't have a position yet, but I'm sure, you might say, yeah, but, and she brings up a whole bunch of yeah, buts and answers them, but I'm not trying to tell you what to think. What I loved about it is listening to calm, deeply caring people devoting hours and hours and hours of their time to help this tiny window of time for human beings. I just thought it was so beautiful. In just one example, I could have picked anything. I almost picked it out. Sometimes I feel humor when I pick something weirdly random like this. It's humorous to me. I laugh a little, like I'll pick that weird thing. It's what I do. But I could have picked 1,000 other things. We're the opposite of clowns and idiots. We're deeply thoughtful people who feel gravity, who feel a grave sense of responsibility to humanity, are working all their lives just to make some good in the world. And that's going on everywhere you look. There's so much good also happening. So much good. They're quiet. They're not on some idiot podcast putting on a circus. They're just working. Then the last thing I want to say is I really don't think many people get caught up in the political stuff. I don't think many people are hiding out of fear and just being intentionally ignorant because they can't handle it. If you're doing that, please don't. That means you are running away from reality. Don't run from your own reality. Don't run from the reality in the world. That's not Christian. I don't think very many people are also ingesting so much of it they're pissed all day either, though. And don't do that. I don't think very many people in here are depressed or hurt by it all. But if you are, don't do that. Because just like when I took psychedelics, it just comes on. It's so neat. And then you get in and it's just this weird dancing clown idiot. Probably a demon. Once you get all the way in, it's all coming off this thing going like this. And then you watch it for like an hour and that's all it does for an hour. And you're like, oh my God. That's the big reveal. You. Clown show. Clown show. Don't dance the clown show. And don't run from it. You dance with Christ. That was the last thing I want to say, which is just to remember you really can't know what stage you're at. Everyone asks me what stage am I at, and I'll kind of give my best, but I should give a different answer. A very famous saint, mystic, if you ask them, their whole group would say, it's none of your business. You don't know, and it's none of your business. And I think I like that better because if I'm at stage 5, who says I have the first 4 well? You don't know where you're at. Someone could be in 6 right now, start hitting 6, and it's like, okay, but I've noticed big lax in 2, so you'll be back around. Like, we don't know. It's like that Terrapin Station song, I can't figure out if it's the end or the beginning. And I think that a lot when I'm flying in the high place. I'm like, I don't know if this is the end or the beginning, man. I just don't know. I don't know if it's the end or the beginning. We don't know where we're at is the point. But we do know one thing. Wherever you are right next to Jesus. Because he's with you. It's the whole point of salvation. He's right there with you. It doesn't matter where you are. He's one turn of your will, one turn of your consciousness away from being right there with you. It's as much as just looking inside or looking next to you, and there he is. He's there wherever you are. So it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He's right there. And that's a little of that you're already saved part that you could have a little of. He's right there. If you're in sorrow, he's right there in sorrow with you. You're hiding out, you can just say, hey man, I'm hiding out. Please be with me while I hide out, and he'll just hide right out with you. He will. If you're in denial, just being a pain in the butt, don't want to look, just say, all right, man, I'm hiding, but I want you to be with me while I hide, and I'm sorry, and he'll be right there with you. And I've told people sometimes joy is the most dangerous place for me because you can turn away from God in joy. You can turn away from God in love. You can love and be away from God's will. You have to be real careful, all of it. I do. I've noticed just anywhere I am, I've just got to make sure I'm with him. It's one turn away. Closer to you than you. Jesus says not a hair falls out of your head God doesn't know about it. I kind of wish he'd do something about it, but that's different. So think of that, you guys. Think about that. So there's a loud mess out there. There's all this great beauty happening. No television show about it. no podcast about it. But that's going on too. Whatever's going on, you just make sure you're dancing with Jesus and not with something else. Not with something else or in reaction to something else. And if I'm not trying to be weird with the demon, if there's a demonic force behind what's happening, I tend to think there is. They don't care which side you're on. If you hate, you're on their side. They don't care. They don't care what side you're on. They just want you to hate, or hide, or fear, or get depressed. Their allegiance is to nothing.